Hi, I'm Brittany Rizzo, and welcome back to My Only Friends. On today's episode, I got to know actor and stuntman Alex Grech. Alex was born in Sydney and raised in Melbourne, and started his acting journey at the age of 6. Alex took a brief hiatus from acting and spent several months working as a paralegal, laborer, and bartender in Australia, raising money to fulfill his dream of embarking on a global trip. After traveling the world, he landed at NYU's TISCH School of Arts. Alex has his first big break in the upcoming independent musical feature film Juliet and Romeo, alongside an all-star cast featuring Rebel Wilson, Jason Isaacs, and Rupert Everett. In the film, Alex shines as Tommaso, Romeo's younger cousin, who admires his adopted cousin Mercutio, and seeks a chance to prove himself. The film, which has a few intricate fight scenes, also called on Alex to double duty as the stunt double for Romeo. Presented as a movie musical trilogy, this modern take on the Shakespearean drama is taking all previous versions of the classic to a whole new level. Distributed by Briarcliff Entertainment, the film is now out, and it will be followed by a UK release on June 11th, and additional territories to be added shortly after. This episode reminds me of the Friends episode, the one with the videotape. In this episode, Joey teaches Ross a monologue to use as a pickup line. It's Joey's surefire way of getting lucky. Although none of them have ever backpacked through Europe, Alex has. His passion for traveling and wanting to learn through experience is inspiring, and just may eventually get me on a plane. Please enjoy my conversation with Alex Grech. What are you up to?
Not much. I've just recently gotten back to New York City after a little bit of time in London. I'm kind of in the middle of a bit of visa processing, coming off a student visa and moving into, an artist's visa in the US. And with everything that's going on over here at the moment, that process is taking a little longer than expected, and there's a lot of uncertainty in the timeline. But I'm in a very fortunate place that, I don't really feel like it will be an issue of whether I get it or not. It's just a matter of when all of that can be processed, because they're so immensely understaffed. So I have real sympathy for the people kind of working in the trenches of those departments at the moment, because they must just be absolutely inundated with loads of work. But it has made it a little bit. Everything's been a little bit up in the air recently. I flew back on an Esther for my cousin's wedding, who's been here for 12 years and is marrying an American girl, and flew back for the wedding, and my mum had organized to come over for the release of the film, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to be here for it, yada yada. It's been a crazy month or so, and it'll probably be a crazy next month.
Yeah. So wait, are you traveling to and from Australia?
No,
You live in New York now.
Yeah, I live in New York, have lived in New York for the past 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Moved to New York for university for NYU TISCH School's Performing Arts course. Did that for 4 years, graduated in May of 2020, and then did, an extension on the student visa, but that runs out 12 months after.
Right.
So now just making sure that all that paperwork goes through so that I can stay here and still continue to work.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so, I don't know if you're like this, but I just got my passport for the first time. I never had one. I'm 34. I never got a passport. And I literally, when I went and got it, I felt so nervous. And I was like, I feel like I was in trouble, handing over all my documents. And she was like, do you solemnly swear? And I was like, I've never solemnly sworn on anything, but I'm pretty sure that's my name. I was so I swear it's me. I was so nervous. And it did take forever. I mean, I made the appointment in February. I just literally today got my birth certificate back after the whole process. It does take a very long time, all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, the beauty of bureaucracy, it's intimidating, it's time consuming, but it's what makes the world go round.
Right. So let's talk about how you even got from your upbringing in Australia to New York. So how old were you when you left Australia?
So I graduated high school in 2019, and I actually left at the 2018, and then by early 2019 had saved up enough money to leave and travel, and did like a circuit of the globe for about 11 months. And
Wow.
it was during that point that I auditioned at NYU and kind of started to build a bit of a plan for the dream of pursuing a career
Hmm.
as an actor and going to, one of the best performing arts schools in the world. And didn't really think much of it. Found out before I ever got back to Australia that I had been accepted, and was like, okay, great. This sets up the next 4 years. So I
Hmm.
went back to Australia for about 10 months. To work and save up money. COVID hit and everything like that, which extended the process. But by fall of 2020, I moved to New York for
Wow.
to start my acting training, and have been here ever since until I graduated last May.
Well, congratulations on graduating. That's like very recent. I mean, that's not that long
Yeah,
ago.
thank you.
Now, growing up in Australia, what was the moment you were like, oh, I want to do that? Like, what were you watching or what were you seeing in life where you were like, I want to be an actor?
I mean, that's a great question because I I actually started acting when I was about 6.
Wow.
And I started acting because my older brother began doing it,
Mm,
and I was
mm-hmm.
immediately like, "Okay, well, if my older sibling's gonna do it, I better do it too." Um,
Right.
and he's fantastic. I still, send him material that that I'm working on so that he can have a read and we'll talk about it, and he helps me do readings for auditions and stuff like that. Like, he's fantastic
Mm-hmm.
and he loves getting involved, but, he kind of, he didn't keep it up through adolescence and everything. And I was with we both started this group called the Victorian Youth Theatre when I was 6 and he was 8. Um, and I did that for about ten years or so.
Oh,
Kept
nice.
involved in theatre and film throughout high school. And was actually did IB theater, was the drama captain at my high school, kind of managed and produced a lot of shows, did a lot of devised theater, created a lot of new theater, original theater. Um, so that was where the passion was sort of lit. And I was a very, very sporty, physical person.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I love the arts, I think the reason that performance is so attractive to me is because it's a mental and physical combination. It's
Mm-hmm.
all of you as the instrument, as the vessel, as the tool, whatever term you prefer. Um, so yeah, I think that's where the passion sort of started. It wasn't until I was traveling and I sort of realized that if this was something I was going to commit my life to, it required, you know, 100% of my commitment, if not more. It
Mm-hmm.
required me to kind of devote everything to it, and make hard choices and sacrifice some things. But yeah, I don't know if there's a specific moment to answer your
Yeah.
question directly. Like, I don't know if there's a
Yeah.
specific moment. If I had to give one, I was I was doing a when I was with the Victorian Youth Theatre, which is the company I started acting with when I was very young. They did 2 shows a year, and they had various kind of campuses around the state. Um, and all the shows for these different campuses would be at the same theater, just at different, slightly different days and times. And everyone would be doing the same set of shows.
Mm-hmm.
And my particular group at this time, I think I would have been like 12 or 13.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing a version of Charles Dickenson's A Tale of Two Cities.
Mm.
which is like a really kind of hardcore material for 12, 13
Yeah,
year
for
olds.
12-year-olds, yeah.
Yeah. Like really emotional. I was playing Sydney Carton as well, who's like a really emotionally intense character. Um, is deeply in love with the female lead, but knows that she's not right for him and that she will never love him. So he sacrifices himself at the end to get
Yeah.
her right lover out of prison so that they can go and be happy. And it
At
essentially
12.
ends.
Wow.
Yeah, and he kind of the whole thing ends with him sort of being like, I'm happy in my life because, and I can die happy because I know that the person I love, I've ultimately secured their happiness, their long-term
Mhm.
happiness. That means I can be happy. Um, Very intense. And
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that role and I really enjoyed that production. And I think what did it for me is I got a call one day from one of my old coaches, from like a previous year. And he called me and was like, "Hey, our Sydney was involved in an unfortunate accident earlier today and can't come in. Would you be willing to, just catch the bus?" Because he knew where I was based and was like, would you be willing to catch the bus to the theater? We'd need you
Mhm.
here in the next hour or two. And I was like, okay, absolutely. And so just like got on the bus, got there quickly, threw costume on and did makeup and all of that. And then was waiting in the wings. And this was like the first time I was meeting the rest of the cast.
Mhm.
And we went out and it was just great. Like it was just things just kind of clicked and there was, a few little great moments of improv and the girl who was playing my love interest became like one of my closest friends and
Aw.
she's a physiotherapist in Melbourne today working with AFL teams like Australian football.
Mm. Mhm.
um and we catch up whenever I go home, but that performance experience was so much fun, um,
Yeah.
and came completely out of nowhere and kind of introduced me to this incredible, amazing person. And I felt so kind of deeply fulfilled. Like, even though nobody in the audience would have known that that was such a last minute thing, um,
Right.
I was always really, really proud of, the adaptability that I felt that
Mm.
the skills of theater gave me where I could do that. Could do something like
Right.
that, like step into a room and be completely unfamiliar with what's happening, but still give a charismatic performance that, allows people to stay immersed in the world, even if I don't feel as comfortable as I maybe think I should be. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah.
and I bet that helps in, like, your daily life too, especially when you're moving from one place to the other. Cause like, I mean, that feeling of, like, being the new kid and, like, I don't really know anybody here, and I don't know, like, if I can be 100% myself yet, but, like, having that skill of being able to adapt to any sort of environment, it's helpful in theater and in real life.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's one of those weird things where I think that to for lack of a better phrasing, part of the reason that I feel that theater or performance has always been the right thing for me. Not to say that
Mhm.
I was, born for it. I'm not that much of an egoist. But I do think that it's very fitting for me because I'm a very very deep thinking person, a very passionate person, but I also need to kind of have some semblance of structure and my own organization that kind of looks
Yeah.
and feels just right for me. And I've always been incredibly adaptive and have a massive respect for the kind of discipline that is required. Like I have my own sort of personal struggles, and the way that I get through that is by having discipline and structure and being adaptive. Um,
Right.
you know, that those structures sometimes break or sometimes bend because life throws you a curveball. Um,
Hmm.
so you need to, respect your disciplines, but also be adaptive enough to find ways to still use what's useful in them and get the utility out of them, even if you can't stick to them rigorously all of the time.
Right, right. And I'm sure too, because like, as you say, like, you have these intense feelings and deep thinking, and you're as young as 6, but it must be nice that you're in a group with other kids who really feel and think the same way. And I'm sure that was like nice growing up to also, and you probably, I mean, you could correct me if I'm wrong, always had a good group of friends around you that you could relate to in the theater.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's interesting because yes, but also it's such a particularly at younger ages, it's such a transitory thing. Um,
Mm,
like a lot of people come in and out of various theater circles, maybe you move around a bit. Um, which was the case with me. Like I had a few very close friends with the Victorian Youth Theatre.
hmm.
And worked with certain instructors multiple times over the course of, the many years I was there. But it's really hard to, particularly at younger ages, to feel like you're, developing these kind of meaningful, deep-seated connections with other actors
Hmm.
that you're only spending limited time with. I think as you get older, particularly through my training at NYU, like I've met many, many dozens of,
Yeah.
fellow actors and artists who, continue to inspire me well beyond our time at university, and
Right.
hope to continue to work with over years and years and years. And, we'll see where all of that goes. It's kind of hard because you need to try, while you may care very deeply, this
Right.
industry is very busy and, sometimes you don't speak to someone for a while and you figure out where the like-minded people are because even if you don't speak for a little bit, as soon as you guys have something super interesting to bring up with each other, you're right back into it.
Yeah,
You're
you
right
just
back where
click.
you left. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 So I don't think that's something that you necessarily construct. You can certainly get better at building those sorts of relationships off less experience. But at the end of the day, it's just like making those connections and finding those people. And I think most of the time it's, a more of a numbers game than anything else. Like I
Mm,
can't tell you the amount of times that the person I've felt most connected with is, you know, the friend of a friend. It's the
right.
whole like you have someone that you meet through a class or something like that, and you think the two of you are really like-minded, and then they introduce you to their friend, and they're like, I
Yeah.
think you'll really like Greg. Greg seems like
Yeah.
your type of guy. And then you meet Greg and you're like, Greg is my brother from another mother. Greg is my guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
so
it's
funny.
weird. It's weird how the world works, and I think you only really figure that out by putting yourself out there and trying to
Mhm.
not necessarily manufacture those experiences, but putting yourself in the pathway of new experiences that will hopefully introduce you to new and exciting people.
Yeah, yeah. Now, when you first, so like I just think that is so brave. I mean, I think anybody who like leaves their home to come out to LA or go to New York is like so brave. Most of the time the people I talk to are people who are just moving across the country or to another state. But you left Australia and you came to New York. Now, were you terrified? Were you excited or all the things?
Uh, yeah, all of the things, all of the things.
Yeah.
There was a lot of anticipation.
Hmm.
I really like I very deeply care about the craft of acting. And I was really, really excited to be working with the kinds of professional coaches, like working professional coaches that
Yeah.
NYU offers through its kind of multifaceted approach to the acting program, where you have access to all these different conservatories that aren't necessarily directly associated with the university.
Mhm.
And so I was just like, I was so excited to be able to kind of launch myself in and learn as much as I could and get as much experience as I could. I was also, yeah, really, really anxious because I didn't know anybody. And
Mhm.
I was starting a little bit because I'd taken time to have a year off. You know, I was starting in my freshman year and I was 21. I was like
Mm.
turning 21. And, you know, there were other people who were like 18 and this was the first time they'd left home sort of thing.
Right.
And that's absolutely no shade on those individuals. Like that was the
Right.
moment that they were at in their time at that time in their life. Um, but it was interesting because I definitely coming from Australia, I'm very blunt, I'm quite direct, and I learned very quickly that Americans do not appreciate directness
I mean,
as
I feel
much.
like the New Yorkers say they do, but maybe they can't handle it like they think they can.
Yeah, and it was also just like there were a lot of people who had moved from a lot of different places in America that
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
know
yeah.
little to nothing about. So like I wasn't really trying to stick my nose in where it didn't belong.
Mm.
But it was very hard because I did feel a little bit of a culture shock, and there was a little bit of like
Yeah.
I don't know if I really belong in this circle or this group of people, but I'm really dedicated to the work that I came here to do, and that's really my focus. Like my focus isn't
Right.
to make friends. My focus is to kind of get good at my craft, to fine tune my
Right.
skills. It was also the tail end of COVID, which meant that
Mm.
it was really hard to like meet anyone outside of your acting course because acting courses are
Yeah.
quite rigorous, where it's like a 7:30, 8 a.m. start, and then you're running all the way till 6 p.m. And you're spending like all day with these people, so you don't particularly want to go, hey, after spending 10 plus hours together, do you want to go get a drink? Like, no, I've had enough of you, man. Like, you're lovely, but I need some time
Yeah.
alone. Um,
Yeah.
so it was quite hard because there wasn't like weekend events that I was able to go to or clubs that you could join or anything like that because nothing was meeting in person. So
Mhm.
that definitely made it more difficult. And I'm a huge, I come from like a big Southern European, a big Mediterranean family. Um,
Mm.
I was very
So were
fortunate that
you were really homesick?
I wouldn't say homesick. Like I love Australia, but I spent
Mhm.
the first, 19 years of my life there. I know it pretty well. I
Yeah.
think what I missed was the family events and family
Yeah.
occasions. Not being there for when my cousins finished high school, not being there when my grandfather passed away.
Yeah.
Having to watch a funeral over Zoom while you can like hear
Right.
your family, you can hear your family processing it in the background,
Yeah.
but you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, that's tough.
And it just, yeah, it really messed with me. It really messed with me. I don't think it was quite homesickness because I didn't wish that I was there. I was incredibly happy and grateful and honored to be where I was and to be doing what I love. It was just difficult because I felt like I was letting down the people who
Mm.
had given me the strength to have that opportunity. And I know that I wasn't. I'm still incredibly close with all my family,
Yeah,
and
but
don't
it's
mind
still
this,
hard.
those things play on you regardless of anyone else's affirmations.
100%. Yeah, I mean it is hard. It is hard when you are, across the country or even in another state or in clear across the globe. I mean, you want to be there for your family or for your friends and, like you said, you feel like they've been so supportive, so I wouldn't be so supportive and then you feel like you can't. But like they're not making you feel that way. It's just because you have like a big heart and you want to show them you love them.
Yep. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a product of compassion. So,
Yeah.
if that's the toll that I have to pay for having such loving connections and networks, then
Yeah.
I'm in a pretty good place.
Yeah. Now, was there something like where you were like, oh man, but I'm not gonna have this in New York? Like, was there something you really had to get used to not having from Australia to New York? Like even in terms of there's like a sandwich shop in Las Vegas and I'm like, God, I wish that was in LA.
Honestly, that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
But like the New York deli like bodega sandwiches are
True.
like one of my favorite things about living in this city, honestly.
That's so
Um,
funny. Yeah.
I think for me, I missed the kind of ease of convenience of being able to check in with the outdoors and kind of get a
Mm,
um I grew up surfing. I love surfing. Since moving to New York, I haven't been able to surf as much as I would like. I can literally only surf when I go back to Australia or when I travel somewhere that has, a cheap board rental or something like that nearby.
right.
Um, so I think that is something that like I still will regularly catch a train upstate and, spend a few days in the Catskills or something like that, or travel down through Virginia or try and get out to a national park. Because, that connection to nature is immensely important to me. It is something that keeps me balanced and allows me to sort of let go of a lot of stresses that might be building up in life. Like LA, like New York, it can be a very, very high octane existence
Hmm.
where things are just constantly happening. And you constantly feel like if you're not doing something, then you're missing out on something, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Um, and I believe it's really, really important to kind of disconnect from that at certain moments and actively make it a choice of being like, hey, these 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, it's going to be me and my hiking pack and this particular state park or national park. And here's the little route that I'm going to do. And, I'm going to camp here this night because I've got water and a nice campsite and a nice view and just sort of like having this security. I'm not saying just like grab your backpack and walk out into the wilderness. That is a surefire way for you to die or have a very
Yeah.
unpleasant time at least. Um, but there's real joy in like feeling prepared to step into the wild and then
Mm,
executing, and giving yourself the freedom to kind of be connected in nature in a way that is on your terms, not
yeah.
necessarily the survivalist thing, which I still love, but I completely understand that that is not for everyone. But I do believe that, everyone should have some sort of base level connection to a wild
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, it's interesting because like camping is literally never, it's not in my cards. It's never going to happen for me. But I would be the person to be like, oh yeah, I can just go with like my tennis shoes and my phone. Like I'll be okay. Like I would be the first to die in the wilderness. But when I was going through a really hard time, like it wasn't up until probably last summer that I like started actually utilizing going to the beach because I was listening to this book and it's called Manifesting Your Dream Life. And it's like the simplest audiobook, like will take you maybe 45 minutes to listen to. But it was really like when you're stressed or anxious or sad, the best thing you can do is go be in nature. And it really was the only time that I felt truly calm was when I was just laying on the beach with nowhere to be, just listening to waves. So I do think that that is so important to like make the effort to just do that as much as you can if it's available to you for sure.
Yeah, and I think that was honestly the hardest thing about moving to New York is that it's a little bit of an effort. Um, I still do it all the time, but you get some crazy looks when you bring a hiking pack onto the New York City subway. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, you get some crazy looks. But no, you soldier through and get out there
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely the hardest thing.
Does your family, when they see you, are they like, "Oh, you're so different now. You're so New York now."
I my mum is a fashion designer by trade. So she actually
Oh,
spent a lot of
nice.
time in New York in her youth. I think that me moving here kind of uh, just gave. I think she was so on board.
Yeah,
She was so on board because she was like, "This is just an excuse for me to travel to New York as regularly as
nice.
I want." Um, so yeah, I honestly feel like she thinks I could be more New York. She thinks I could try a bit
Interesting.
harder. I've certainly taken all of her fashion advice. My
Nice.
brother and I used to like rail against her picks when we were younger, and
Mhm.
we had horrible kind of uh, surf coast wannabe farmer's boy fashion senses. Um, and since moving to New York, the one thing that has most certainly taken a massive positive trend has been my fashion sense, simply because I started listening to my mother more. So
You
yeah, if
always
I
gotta listen
trusted
to
her
mom.
10 years ago, who knows where we'd be now?
Right? With so many things, truthfully, in my life too. If I only
Oh,
would have
honestly,
listened to
man,
my mother.
honestly, it's every year it's another 10 or 20 things that I'm like, I wish I'd acted on that sooner.
Yeah. And then you went backpacking around the globe. I mean, I guess it's like for me, I couldn't like I was upset when we'd go to the mall that was further from our house. Like I was always like, "Oh my God, I'm so far away from the house. I'm far away from the dog." Like I envy people who can literally just be like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna like pack my shit and go on a vacation." Like clutching my pearls. Like that is so admirable that you've just packed up everything and you've went all around the globe, you've gone backpacking, you've moved. I mean, what do you think is your brother like that too, or your parents like that?
Um, I mean, Australians in general like to travel.
Yeah.
Like you see us everywhere. Uh, my family in particular definitely enjoy traveling. We're from a big Mediterranean family, so I've still got like second cousins and aunties and uncles in Malta and Italy, and some in Canada as well. So like we travel quite a bit to visit them and have done since my brother and I were quite young. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but also in general, I've always been a very, an avid explorer. I love a good adventure, and I love the idea of exploration. Um, Something that is very close to my heart is there's like John Locke gives his ideas on epistemology and his idea of how we gain and attain knowledge. And I read this quote when I was very, very young, and I kind of didn't really understand the socioeconomic the socioeconomic implications that he was making with it in the grander statement. I just read this quote and was like,
Mm-hmm.
that is fantastic. And it's this idea that no man's knowledge can go beyond his experience. Um, Now, the rest surrounding that quote, I don't believe in as much, but that specific phrase of, you know,
Yeah.
it's not the only way we get knowledge, but there is a surefire way for you to feel confident about anything, and that's to have done it before or to have been
Yeah.
through a similar experience. That's going to help you
Mhm.
know that you can face that adversity. That helps remove the fear of the unknown, is to
Yeah.
more familiar with it. Um, and that was like a really big guiding principle in my younger life. And something that, yeah, really, really shaped a lot of the decisions that I made in that stage. So part of traveling for and doing that circuit of the globe was about experiencing as many different cultures and trying to dip my fingers into as many different ways of life as
Yeah.
I possibly could to kind of figure out what worked for me and where I was going to find the most fulfillment or the greatest opportunity for long lasting fulfillment. Like I'd worked as a laborer, I'd worked as a bartender, I'd worked as a paralegal.
Wow.
And it was over that time where I was also like, just doing odd jobs in different countries to earn enough money to pay for a bus ticket into the next country, sort of thing. That I figured out that performing was like interacting with people, whether it be through performance or bartending or whatever. Like that was the aspect that gave me fulfillment. It was
Hmm.
providing some sort of constructed experience that gave some other experience to someone
Yeah.
else via their perception and interpretation of it. Um,
Yeah.
and that the travel aspect of it is just that I've always loved adventure and wanted to kind of understand as many different perspectives as I possibly could, in the hopes that one day I would have the sort of platform where I could be helping, share original stories from these places that
Yeah.
perhaps people don't really think of or don't get the perspective of. Um, and maybe help open some eyes to some beautiful things. I think the world is far too eclectic for us to not go out and try and find something
Yeah.
special and magical.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to get better. I finally got my passport, so we'll see.
That is step one. That is the
That's step
guaranteed
one.
step one. That is guaranteed step one. You need that before you do anything else.
I know. I know. And to get over my fear of flying, but
Hey
easy.
man, you can get a boat. Look, I don't recommend the boat or bus travel. I did like it was a 10-hour bus from
A
Varanasi,
10-hour bus?
a 10-hour bus, yeah, from Varanasi in northern Italy through to Kathmandu in Nepal. And it was it was a it, it was a ring of hell, I'm pretty sure. I'm
Oh,
pretty sure
I
that
mean,
if
just
I die and go to hell, I will go back to that bus.
literally thinking about being with a group of people for 10 hours in a vehicle sounds like my hell too. So I
Oh,
could
and
empathize with that.
you're on like really thin mountain roads driving through
Oh,
the foothills of the Himalayas, and there's other trucks coming the other way. I remember looking out the window at one side, and there was like, like this much space between the edge, just like a sandy edge, and the tire. And I was like, oh, cool. If the car rolls, I'm just dead. That's
oh
it.
my God.
I don't need to
Oh my
worry about
God.
the rescue plan or anything. It's, like a 300-foot drop. That's fine.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. See, I hear
yeah,
that and I just go, yeah, I think I've known from a very young age that I've always just wanted to go home.
yeah, yeah. That's immensely fair. That's immensely fair. Yeah, look, that
I'm
was
like,
one of those
yeah, because
moments I regretted. I
everything
regret.
else, yeah, I'm like, everything else sounds amazing. But then I hear that one bad travel story and I'm like, yeah, not going.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, you have to have the my like my best friend, one of my best friends from back home, when I got back from my time traveling and before I left for my study at New York, we got a tattoo together.
Nice.
That was this kind of this message. It's WSLM, and it's win some, lose most. Um,
Yeah.
and it's this tiny, yeah, it's this tiny, like these tiny four
My motto
letters.
too.
Yeah, no, it's quite literally the motto that we use, and it very quickly kind of grew into this expansive group. There's now like 8 or 9 people who are in our friendship circle who have it, and it's kind of adopting this semi-stoic approach of like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Like you need to go and put yourself out there, understanding that most of the time things will go wrong because either
Hmm.
because of what you did or because of something that's outside of your control. And
Right.
it's not worth you beating yourself up about it. It's not worth you living in the losses, because there's way more of those than you can possibly comprehend. And if you let
Mhm.
every single one of them, beat you down, you're not going to get very far before it just becomes too much. Um, but there will be those wins, and those wins
Right.
are the thing that matters. That's what
Right.
makes all the losses worthwhile. Um, and for me, like, hiking is one of the greatest embodiments of that phrase. Like, you
Mhm.
have a massive mountain in front of you, and there is no guarantee that you will make it to the top. And
Yeah.
likely the majority of the process from, like, you know, from the foothills through till right before you get to the summit, like that last half hour, most of that will be probably fairly unpleasant, especially if it takes you a
Yeah.
few days and you have to acclimatize for altitude and all that jazz. Like,
If you're
you
on a
probably
hike with
won't
me,
be
the whole
having
thing's unpleasant.
yeah, you won't be having fun all of that time. But when you get to the top and you get to, look out over the world from a perspective that, very few people have seen and that you cannot possibly imagine. Even in
Yeah.
your best creative attempts, you couldn't fictionalize that view with
Yeah.
accuracy.
Yeah.
So that I think that's part of why when you get there and you have experiences like that where you see some natural beauty, that's why it strikes us so much.
Mm.
I think art has the same sort of power, but in a very different way. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, we've talked about you like having experiences in theater. What was it like in film or television where you wanted to really make that transfer over? Like what was a performance that you saw or what was the inspiration to go, okay, now let's transfer this to the screen?
Yeah, I mean, I have always really loved film.
Mhm.
Film and animation, as opposed to theater, just give you a breadth of freedom in your creativity to explore things that are perhaps, beyond the bounds of the theatrical space. Like a great example is I'm someone who grew up reading a lot of comic books. I love comic books.
Mm.
I don't love all comic book movies, but I'm
Right.
immensely grateful to the film and animation industry for, breathing life into some of these stories, into some of these characters in a way that I just don't think theater ever could, and in a way that is more accessible and more digestible than comic books. Um,
Yeah.
it's not the same as the source material. It never will be the same as the source material, but that's kind of my point, is that it's an adaptation. Um,
Yeah.
in much the same way, like, I was a big mythology kid. Um, and when you start to learn how many of the kind of filmic or cinematography tropes are based on these mythic allegories of what it is to be a hero, what it is to struggle with
Mhm.
grief or PTSD, or whatever it may be. Learning that there's, like, ancient connections to those things, and that it's a lot of creativity can be sourced as, or could to some extent be defined as, like, a reinterpretation of some classic idea. But,
Mhm.
like, that's a whole different conversation of, like, what is originality in the arts, yada yada, which are, like, fun
Mhm.
conversations that I like to have. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily one or the other in that sort of respect. But yeah, the
Well,
attraction for me for film is exactly that freedom of being able to create things that will be more accessible to wider
yeah.
audiences.
Was there like a certain character that was just like iconic to you growing up? Like who's your Rachel Green? I mean, did they have they had friends in Australia,
Oh
right?
yeah, oh yeah, they had
Okay.
friends. Oh yeah, they had friends. Um, oh, that's really hard. Um, Okay, as much as I hate that I'm about to say this, this is the
Oh,
honest
I'm
truth. So,
excited.
I guess I'm just gonna expose myself and spit it out.
Do it.
Being the comic book nerd that I was, I loved Batman. Um,
That's
and
amazing.
but it was never I think for me, part of what I wanted to emulate was this idea of seeking out unique and multifaceted training as a way of, building yourself into like some better, more holistic version of yourself.
Mhm.
That was
Mhm.
something that just like really connected with this deep-seated part of me that, wanted to be better than
Yeah.
I was, and kind of is always pushing me to try and be better. And, I think that's a big part of why I tend to overextend myself in many different areas of,
Mhm.
making sure I'm like, physically active and, trying to stay involved with creating new work and being involved with existing work and trying to, reinvent classics and also create original stories. Um, I think it's all in the effort of trying to make yourself as well-rounded as you possibly can so that, you have many perspectives to draw from, because that's always going to make you more valuable and more useful in any particular process than just being, the just being the expert on Shakespearean texts. Um,
Yeah. Who is your favorite Batman?
um, that's interesting. I think that the 1990s Batman the animated series will forever be my Batman, where like
Mm.
he, is mostly using like the really old school gadgets, has a very
Yeah.
stripped back costume. I think in the live action sense, um, I honestly really love what Robert Pattinson has brought to the character. I think he's done an incredible job. Like there's a lot of controversy around that, but I do genuinely feel that he's given us like a really original, really raw take on that character. Um, Christian Bale is probably the most impressive to me.
Yeah,
He's
he's
like he's also
incredible.
just an impressive actor.
Yeah,
Um,
he's incredible.
but
He's
for
also the
me,
only one I've seen.
oh, okay, no, that's perfectly fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is if you haven't like heard of this before, but his transition from doing The Mechanist to doing Batman Begins, there was
Mhm.
about, I think it was like 4 months or 6 months between those films. Um,
Mhm.
and he went from, shredding like 100 odd pounds to being like just skin and bone to beefing himself up. And the level of just like the level of like raw commitment that that man has to a
Yeah.
role, and the fact that he's displayed it across such a range of characters from,
So many
like
times too.
American Psycho all the way through to the most recent like Thor movies. He does
Yeah.
not waver on his level of discipline and commitment to a character, regardless of whatever else is happening with the production or the
Mhm.
film. Like he is always just so on point that like it's a
Yeah.
pleasure to watch, regardless what he's in.
How did you get into doing stunts?
Yes. I got into doing stunts because I had a background in martial arts when I was much younger, doing a bit of Krav Maga and Jiu-Jitsu, and then also played a lot of contact sport, like played rugby and water polo at a state level. So was very used to the physicality, very much enjoyed it. Like taking care of my body is something that is not just important to me for physical health reasons, but it's part of keeping my mental health up to scratch. Um,
Mhm.
and I think as an actor, have it's really important to have the physical mobility and physical range to kind of embody the physicality of different characters, whatever those demands may be. Um,
Yeah.
so that's a massive part of it for me is, having the ability to be confident that I can utilize all of my physicality in a character or in a performance. Um, how I got into stunt work is quite literally just being comfortable doing it. I trained
Yeah.
through NYU in various courses for on-camera stunt work and also stage combat, getting certified in both. Um, and then just sort of kept doing that kind of work. Had a very good friend of mine who introduced me to the world of stunt coordinating, and I started helping him out more expressly and working on projects with him and choreographing. And because I had a lot of my own gear, I'd bring a lot of that and help out. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was a fairly natural development. Like if you'd asked me when I was, you know, if I was when I was 20, if I thought I'd be an actor stuntman, I probably would have been like, probably not. But now I feel like it's a bit of a no-brainer. Like it
Yeah.
makes perfect sense
Yeah.
for the kind of person I am and for what I like doing. Yeah, if I care about something, I'm very willing to kind of put my body on the line. Obviously, within reason, I don't like taking foolish risks because my body is, my way of
Your job.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
required for my craft. Um, so like I'm not about taking unnecessary risks, but I am someone who knows their body rather well, and I know where my
Yeah.
limits. And
Yeah.
often the hardest part is negotiating with the insurance people and being like, "Hey man, I need you to trust me because I know I can do this. I know I
Yes.
can do this, but I need you to feel confident that I can do this."
Right. Now, speaking of stunts, you are doing now, hold on, let me read this correctly. Are you doing somebody else's stunts in Juliet and Romeo, and then you're also a different character?
Yeah, so I play Tommaso, who is Romeo's
Okay.
younger cousin. I do all of my own stunts in that film. And then Romeo, who's played by Jamie Ward, unfortunately injured his ankle or injured his
Ah,
leg during our rehearsal process. And so wasn't able to do, his fight scenes. But the production team and the writer director Tim Scott Bogart was very adamant that he wanted, the actors doing as much of their own stunt work as physically possible so that we could, really feel and see the physicality in those performances and feel attached to it. Um,
mhm.
and Tim came over and gave me a tap on the shoulder and kind of asked if I would be willing to work with Jamie to make sure that the physicality of his Romeo was something that remained consistent throughout,
Mm.
the dialogue versus the acting versus the fight scenes.
Yeah.
Sorry. Um, and I was incredibly grateful and felt a bit honored by being given the kind of trust and opportunity. Um, and so yeah, I worked with Jamie and became his stunt double. And did the large majority of his stunts.
You had to be so tired by the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I was part of principal cast and also stunt doubling, and it ended up working out that I was on set. The only person who was on set more than me was Juliet, which makes perfect
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were days where I was getting changed to and from the Romeo double costume and my Tommaso costume and sort of just like jumping back and forward. And I was also a full-time
Yeah.
student at the time
Oh
because of the
my
way the student
gosh.
visa works. Yeah, because of the way the student visa works, you need to be doing 12 credits every semester. So I was doing 12 credits while shooting this film in Italy. And I remember one of my busiest days where I had dialogue scenes as Tommaso and stunt scenes as Tommaso, but also two different stunt scenes as Romeo's double. So it was just like constant, but they were all at different times. So I had, costume, like taking pieces off and putting other pieces on and redoing
That
makeup and
is
hair and all of that, like adding wigs, taking wigs off. And I'm on Zoom doing a writing, doing like a writing workshop. And my
oh my
professor
gosh.
like adamant that I have my camera on. And I was like, okay, but you're going to see like three people stripping me off and putting clothes on while I like hold an AirPod in and try to pretend that I'm paying attention while I do all this. So yeah,
Wow.
that was really fun, but yeah, that was kind of exhausting. I
Yeah,
loved
I
it.
could imagine.
You know,
Yeah.
well, the joy of the circus, like
Hmm.
there's a great turn of phrase that uh if you're not in the circus, you're not in the circus. Like you don't know how it runs, you just get to watch the show. Um
Yeah.
and it was crazy, it was madness, but I absolutely loved every minute of it. I was soaking it
Yeah,
up.
because when you love what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work. And I know that sounds so cheesy, but it's so true. Like when you're doing something you really, really love, it's like a different kind of exhaustion. But if you're doing something you're not super passionate about, you're so drained and like miserable by the end of the day. But if you like really love it, you're like, oh my God, let's do that again tomorrow. Even though
Yeah,
you know it's crazy.
absolutely.
So this is a movie musical trilogy of Juliet. It's
Mhm.
Juliet and Romeo, not Romeo and Juliet. So why is this different than Romeo and Juliet?
Yeah, so the first part is in the name. There's, an inversion on the classic, and that really speaks to the fact that uh, Juliet, as with many, if not all, of the other characters in this world, in this telling of Juliet and Romeo, are much richer, much more complex, much more holistic characters than they are kind of presented as in Shakespeare's version. Shakespeare's
Hmm.
version, Romeo and Juliet, is very, very focused on the lovers, on their love, and the intensity of it. Whereas this film, Juliet and Romeo, obviously still has all of that. It wouldn't be much of a Juliet and Romeo story if it didn't have the love, and the
Right.
passion. But it's that the love and the passion is actually understood and can be sort of seen in the context of the world of Verona, which is run by these ruling class families of Capulet and Montague, um, and how these young, like our Juliet and Romeo in this world, are young adults, so they're kind of balanced in terms of this age power dynamic, but they're
Hmm.
also equally independent, equally well-rounded and holistic characters that kind of have their own drive and ambition. And that's part of the tension, is them having to grapple with the conflict between their, responsibility to their family and their want for passion, and
Hmm.
their passion for love and their passion to build something new beyond the Verona that built them into
Yeah.
the adversaries that they were told that they are.
And what is your character like in this?
Yeah, so Tommaso is an original character for this feature film musical. You won't find him in Shakespeare's original. And I was incredibly excited to get the opportunity to work on an original character and sort of
Yeah.
bring and breathe life into him. Tommaso, at the start of the film, he's incredibly warlike, kind of very quick to anger, quick to pick a fight, admires his adoptive cousin Mercutio, deeply respects Mercutio's loyalty to the Montague name.
Hmm.
And Tommaso kind of wants to emulate that and wants to follow in his footsteps and help defend the name of the Montague house. Um, and as we progress, as we go through the film, Tommaso is sort of forced to face up to the fact that there's more to life, more complexity to
Hmm.
his world than just representing the family name at all costs.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was very much raised as like a foot soldier and is having to kind of grapple with this idea that perhaps there's more or potentially there's more to the world and to his life than living and dying for the sake of the Montague
Right.
clan, for the sake of Verona. And a lot of that conflict in him is inspired by Romeo's passion and the passion that he can see in his adoptive cousin. Oh, sorry, in his legitimate cousin.
Do you sing in it?
Yeah. Sing, dance, stunts, the whole shebang, all of it. Yeah,
That's
the
amazing. What a great job to book, like just to show off all assets. That's amazing. Congratulations.
oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
It was an incredible opportunity, and I'm so immensely grateful for the amount of trust that production put in me as a sort of unknown variable. And yeah, I'm really glad that I could kind of give them all that hard work. And I hope that audiences can kind of see that and that it all pays off.
Yeah, I mean that's really incredible and it is. It's going to show so much of what you can do and all the hard work that you've put in and all the dedication you've put in. So I'm excited to see it. When can people see it? When is it out?
So, North America, May 9th release, which is coming up really fast. Mother's Day
Yeah.
this weekend. So yeah, I'm immensely excited. My mum is actually in New York at the moment, so I'm gonna take her
Oh,
on Mother's Day and we're gonna go see it together, which will be lovely.
nice.
Yeah. I'm really
So,
glad.
sorry, it's a trilogy. So there is it movie length or is it a show length or is it when is it all going to be released?
Yes, so I don't currently have any information on the second and third. I
But they're
imagine
all
you guys.
movies.
They're all movies. They're all feature
Okay.
films. So
Okay.
2 hours or like around 2 hours. Um, yeah, and I honestly don't have much information on the sequels, but I do know that audiences are going to be like it's a happy ending. I think people will be pleasantly surprised by the way that the story turns out. But also, it's interesting because even Shakespeare's version is based on an epic poem that is talking about a historical period, which is when
Hmm.
Verona as a city state was kind of being fought over between like aristocrats that owned a lot of the land and owned these city states, and the church that was trying to take it in the name of Rome. Um,
Hmm.
so there was a lot of internal political conflict going on, and Shakespeare sort of picked this love story that was in this epic poem and was like, I'm going to write a play
Yeah.
about that. And I think it's going to be fantastic when people get to see that this is a world that exists beyond the love story that we know Shakespeare told us.
Yeah. Now, is it current pop music that's in it or original songs as well?
Original songs. They're all original songs written
Fun.
by uh written and produced by Evan Kid Bogart and Justin Gray, who are amazing to work with. Like their music is incredible. They've written, hit songs like Halo for Beyonce. Like they are just,
Wow.
yeah, they're a powerhouse team. And I'm absolutely certain that these songs will be, ringing in people's ears for many months and many years to come. The music is
Nice.
one of my favorite aspects of this entire project. It's also the level of detail that is put into how intricately interweaved they are.
Hmm.
I'll try to keep this explanation brief because it is this rather complicated thing that Evan tried his best to explain to me, and I'm sure I'm gonna
Yeah.
butcher it. Um, so to avoid putting my foot in my mouth too much, I'll try and keep it brief. But essentially, because we're doing, something that's taking Shakespearean material and we're not using the iambic pentameter, we're not using the verse structure that he created for it. The idea being that the music, in the same way that Shakespeare's iambic pentameter gives us a view of the internal world of the character and the climate. Um,
Hmm.
these songs have been written as a means of translating that same inner action with the
Hmm.
characters and the people they're interacting with in their world, and
Yeah.
giving that to the audience in a way that isn't that it kind of seamlessly flows with the action of scene to scene. So it's not a Les Mis sort of thing where everything is sung, everything is
Yeah.
musical, but
Yeah.
the very world itself is this musical place, where the music
Yeah.
sort of bursts out of these characters as a way of expressing some internal action, or
Hmm.
internal movement, emotional
Right.
movement. Um, but yeah, the way Evan and Tim explain it is staggering and
No,
brilliant,
I'm
and I'm
excited. I
excited.
mean, I love pop music. I love rom-coms, and I can't wait to see you in it. I mean, this is really, really cool. And like I said, it's all your hard work that you have been going at for quite some time now, and it's all wrapped up into one beautiful project. So that's really amazing. And I hope you give yourself a good pat on the back and you celebrate.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I will be doing my best. Fortunately, I've got like a very proud mum here, so I think
No.
a lot of patting on the back will be done for me. I just need to try and keep my ego in check.
Yeah. Well, Alex, this was so nice, and it was so nice meeting you, and congratulations again, and have so much fun this weekend with your mom.
Thank you very much. I absolutely will. Yeah, this was an absolute pleasure. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. All right, well, keep in touch. I can't wait to see this. And
Yeah, will do. Thank you so much for your time. I
okay,
appreciate it.
of course. Thank you. Bye.
See you later. Bye.